the tariffs is a national security situation. It has not been portrayed that way by the corrupt media, but it is. If you have a country that is declining economically, that is a threat to your security. So Germany, for example, is in bad shape economically because of its woke posture and quasi-socialism. The United States is fairly strong, stronger than Russia and China, our adversaries. But if we were to have a recession here, and that, remember, led to the election of Barack Obama, then we would be weakened. So President Trump is determined not to let that happen, and he has instituted these tariffs to stop the federal trade deficit. Now, when I say those words, federal trade deficit, I know you're either going to change the channel or your eyes are glazing over, and if you're older, you may have passed out already. I know how boring this is. I am going to make it. I can't promise it'll be exciting, but it won't be boring. So a trade deficit is when the United States sends more money, corporate money, out than it takes in. And the deficits for us over the past 10 years have been astronomical. So here are the numbers. Beginning in 2017, this is Trump, $552 billion deficit, 621 next year, 617, 679. Okay, so Trump in his first term ran big trade deficits, but nothing like Biden. Biden comes in, first year, 861. Second year, almost $1 trillion, 945. Then 773, then 918 in his last year. Why? He didn't pay attention. Biden could not care less. He wasn't even able to assess those kinds of numbers. But massive amounts of money were going out of the country to our enemies. To our enemies. Biden sent billions to Iran by unfreezing their money, and China was rolling in dollars. So Trump gets back in and goes, I'm going to stop this. And the only way he can stop it is to charge other countries a fee, a tariff, to do business here. Because the United States consumer buys more stuff than anyone on earth by far. Because we got more assets. We have more money. You socialists and communists. We're a consumer-based economy. That means we buy. Companies prosper. China's not consumer-based. Nobody has any money there. They're export-based. So their money comes from shipping stuff here. We buy it, and the money goes back to China, and then they hire another 1 million soldiers. Are we all understanding? I don't think that was boring. I hope it wasn't. All right, so that's Trump's philosophy. In addition, this year, the U.S. Treasury will receive about $500 billion in tariff money. That'll go right into the Treasury. Now, I wish, and if I get to interview Donald Trump, that'll be one of my first questions. Where is that money going to go, Mr. President? What are you going to do with that money? We still have a big trade deficit. Where's it going? Rainy day fund? Are you going to invest? Or what is going on with the $500 billion that you've raised with the tariffs? We, the people, have a right to know that. I don't know it. Nobody's told me. Nobody will say anything. That's not right. Okay. Now, examples of how we get screwed in the trade deficit. So as you know, in May, I was in Japan, China, and Korea. I saw maybe, and I was around. I was moving around. Maybe I saw 10 American cars in the 3 countries. 10. No American cars on the road or trucks or vehicles or anything. None. That's how we're getting screwed. Take a ride on any U.S. highway. Toyota, hello, Mercedes, all over the place. All right. In fact, The United States sells only 5% of the cars that the Chinese people, 1.5 billion, drive. And those are probably Chinese American people over there. 5%. Okay. Japan last year bought 17,000 US vehicles. That was it. 17,000. They're not cooperating by taking our stuff. So therefore, Trump slaps them with tariffs. Do we all get in this, please? I don't want to have to do this again. I really don't. American homeowners, the FBI has been warning all of us about a type of real estate fraud called title theft. The target, your equity. With just a forged signature, ownership can be transferred out of your name, and without protection in place, you are facing an emotional and financial nightmare. That's why I partner up with Home Title Lock. You can find out today if you are already a victim and protect yourself. Use promo code BILL at HometitleLock.com to get a free title history report plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if you are a victim of fraud, they will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code BILL, or use the link below. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code BILL. Now, Trump administration is being sued, okay, by the people who hate Trump, the Democratic Party and all their apparatchiks. And it's in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has to rule. Now, they got a rule in Trump's favor. I'm going to prove it to you right now. And nobody knows this because, again, it's too boring for the media to even contemplate this. You know what the Trade Act of 1974 is? I know you don't because I didn't until my crack research staff handed it to me. The Trade Act of 1974, signed by President Gerald Ford, says there are 3 sections. 301 allows tariffs in response to unfair trade practices. Okay? Section 201 permits tariffs if a U.S. industry is seriously injured by surging imports. 122 authorizes temporary tariffs to address significant balance of trade deficits, and it gives power to the president to do all that. Hello? Okay. Trade Act of 1974. Now, the Supreme Court cannot rule that unconstitutional. All right? But it can limit certain parts of it, which it will. But it's going to allow Trump to have a lot of reign in slapping tariffs because the law is already there. If Congress doesn't want the law, pass a new law. Pass a new tariff law. That's what the Supreme Court's going to say. Because the judges, the 9 of them, they're not lawmakers. They uphold what's already been put into the system. So it's almost impossible for me to believe that the Supreme Court will say to Trump, no, you can't have your tariffs. Thank God, because if that ever happened, there would be a severe recession in this country. Now, I'm just going to play you one stupid soundbite from Congressman Jason Crow, Colorado. Okay? Mr. Crow should not be sitting on Capitol Hill. He's not smart enough to be there. Roll the tape.
Well, part of the problem with the tariffs is that Donald Trump is largely using tariffs. I'm glad you raised that because he's actually largely using tariffs to enrich himself and his family, right? They are using the threat of tariffs to strike golf course deals around the world.
That's not true. There's not a shred of evidence of that. So the man goes on CNN or MSNBC, they're both the same, and lies. And the people in Colorado don't care. But there's no evidence that the tariffs are benefiting the Trump family at all. None. We researched it very thoroughly. Now, Norah O'Donnell on Sunday, 60 Minutes, she knows kind of what the tariff thing is. She doesn't know, I can guarantee you, about the Trade Act of 1974. But here's the exchange with President Trump. Go.
What happens to your economic plan if the Supreme Court invalidates your tariffs?
I think our country will be immeasurably hurt. I think our economy will go to hell. Look, because of tariffs, we have the highest stock market we've ever had. Because of tariffs, 401ks at the highest level and this is millions and millions of people that we've ever had, 401ks. I think it's the most important subject discussed by the Supreme Court in 100 years.
But I can tell you the president's pretty confident he's going to prevail here. All right, and I believe he will as well. So, summing up, this is a extremely important story for you and your family, because should the Supreme Court rule, no, tariffs are illegal, the president doesn't have the power to do that, you'll see the stock market down 5,000 to 10,000 points, and it'll be just Armageddon chaos. And that's a memo.